Hey, this is Candia Raquel, founder of Centro de Poder, the place to sense with your flesh the pleasure of being alive, to connect with your essential fire so you can share the flame. And today we have a very special guest. This is Rodrigo Suárez. He's an Alexander teacher, and he's a wonderful person that I've been admiring already for a few years now. And I'm going to welcome him and ask him to introduce himself. So, welcome. Very happy to have you here at the Essential Sessions.
Hello. Thank you very much, Candia. It feels a bit silly to speak in English with you because we are both Mexicans, but
Yes.
that's good. um, yeah, so I introduce myself. First I studied music when I was like very young. Then I found the Alexander technique, which has a lot to do with, it's psychophysical re-education. And I've been teaching them that for many years. And then nonviolent communication, I fall in love with that approach, and I also teach that now. And you ask me about clowning. I've done that like not as a professional, but more as amateur. For some years I was very much into that, so that's also part of what I have integrated. So that's my quick presentation.
Your presentation. And I am curious to know, how do you feel about your posture, your presence, and pleasure? That for us in Centro de Poder, it are the three keys of sensuality. And how has this changed, evolved since the first day that you got in touch with Alexander? How does your posture change? How does your presence change? And how, in a way, your availability to welcome pleasure change, if it changed? I mean, you know something about it.
Yes, it did. So I started taking Alexander technique lessons when I was 18 years old. And so I was really, really shy. Like my posture, I don't exaggerate. My posture was like this, and I didn't feel like I was like this when I looked at my pictures. I was surprised to see that I was like this. And when my family told me like stand straight, used to try to be straight, but it was very tiring. It was like this. And as a teenager, I was extremely shy. So, and I wasn't happy. Like it was some sort of not being happy in general. Um, so it wasn't at all a fast change. It was a gradual change. So with the Alexander technique, there's this very personal guidance, like an Alexander technique teacher guides you with their hands, like to find like more lightness and length without tension, without rigidity, and how to do your movements, your activities with like freer, with less tension. Um, so as I said, it was like very gradual, but altogether it was like quite a dramatic change. If you see photos of before and after, it's like different person.
Different person.
Yeah. So that came together like where I'm still a bit shy, but I think my personality came out a lot as part of that. So it's not, you can separate one thing from the other.
Yeah.
And I started to learn to dance salsa like in those years. So I see that as part of the process because beforehand I wanted to dance, but like I didn't have like coordination. Like I asked a friend to teach me dancing, and she said, "Well, you don't have any rhythm, so there's nothing I can do."
Oh no.
And I was a musician, so I knew about rhythm, but not about like coordination to dance. So it was part of the enjoyment of like discovering this new coordination in my body, this new integration, freedom that came together with learning to dance. So,
Learning to dance.
mhm. So yeah, when you ask me about pleasure, I think that has a lot to do with it, um, and also, well, since I was so insecure, I didn't have a girlfriend for a very long time. Like I was very insecure with girls, so also that started to come out, like more confidence in myself, and so I remember this. Like there's very little literature about Alexander technique related to sexuality, but
Yeah,
there's one chapter in a book, which is the Alexander Principle, is one of the by
Alexander
Wilfred Barlow, like is one of the classic
Pablo.
Alexander technique books, and there's one chapter about sexuality, and
Sexuality.
I learned that like very early, like probably almost before I had sex, I had read that chapter. Not
Wow,
no
that's
like
so lucky.
yes, almost not like not quite, but almost. Um, so that's changed.
A lot
Like yeah, a lot of what I read in that chapter is still in me. Like
resonates.
so yeah. So I guess I'm going very fast into answering your
It's
question, but
fantastic.
probably
Yeah,
uh,
it's not a
I'll,
trick question. It's an invitation. And I I find it very interesting how you had like a disconnection between the image that you felt in yourself in regards to how you looked in pictures when you were very shy. Like you could see that your posture was collapsed, but and you were collapsed, but you didn't fully realize that you were like that, and your posture changed. But I find something like very relevant that you say like you were very shy as a teenager and insecure, and you didn't have a girlfriend for a long time, even though you are a very good looking guy. Like I don't know if you could just close your eyes, because I'm sure that girls just came chasing you. But well, now you say that you are still very shy, and the but other aspects of your personality come out, and I find that like very important. It's not about like changing in a 9 week express program, but uh, it's about unfolding abandoned on or unknown aspects of the self and bringing them forth to expression without getting into trouble or wanting to not be something that is part of yourself, your personality identity, as say shyness. The thing is that there's like, if with this somatic work that you've learned and that later on you teach, it's as if you became like more spacious and wider to be able to behold complexities and maybe contradictions, as how come you be shy but delight in dancing salsa. Like it seems that that doesn't make sense, but it does, because like we are not like a we are not an iPhone. We are way more
Mhm.
sophisticated and so complex that, yeah, contradictions can become aspects of complexity. So, so now I am curious about that sexuality chapter, and we are all very curious, I can bet, in the sensualist audience. So, would you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, uh, is it a chapter with exercises, or with what is in that chapter?
Not exercises, but well, yeah, there's many things in there that I would like to talk about. And yeah, probably many of them are not, what's the word? exclusive to Alexander technique. It's like probably I read them first there, and then I've heard them in other places, so it's probably not all new. Um, but yeah, it's modern exercises is like awareness about different ways of looking at things. Um, so one of the the points that it touches on is, well, in a way, we all have some trauma. Well, maybe not necessarily trauma, but like like sexual energy is very strong in us, like especially in adolescence, when
Yes.
like, and so it all comes like that, and we don't know what to do with that, and socially it brings like there's some trauma in a way that we've all had experiences of that energy not bringing good things, like when
Yes.
um,
Going crazy.
so some people might have like stronger trauma, and some is smaller, but there's all like at some point we all learned to shut down to that energy, to tense up, and that shutting down is tension.
Yeah. To bury it in the closet and repress it, but then it comes out randomly at the worst moment, explosive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you come from playing with the little ponies and your yeah Joes or whatever the case, because you're a little kid, and then you become a teenager, and it's like, what is going on? Like, starting with the body, like you grow and things come out from your body. It's like, wow. And yeah, like in my experience, I just gaslighted myself. Like nothing is change, like nothing's going on, and I'm just like diving into the intellectual realm while
Mm-hmm.
dealing like on a with a side eye, all these changes and emotional changes. Because yeah, like I mean, you would be lucky if you had like a proper context and come from the upbringing of the enlightened household of your parents, and you live in a civilized country and everything. But for most people, yeah, that is like uh actually terrible moment in life. I mean, of great discoveries, but also, at least for me, it was like bad experiences and not wanting to deal with femininity at all. I became a graffiti artist, and I dressed like a guy. Like people wouldn't tell if I was a guy or a girl until like I was, I think, 18. I moved to another city, and I had a very good friend that told me, Candia, you need to dress like a girl, like a lady. And she went with me to buy like tighter jeans, and I was like, this is so weird, because I was like in my ghetto chola hip hop motherfucker outfit. Like, yeah, in a way, I lived in a tent, hiding my body from the rest of the my my body as a woman from the world and from myself. And now,
Mm-hmm.
20 years, 25 years later on, I am talking about sensuality because it's so important to look at these energies that are brimming in us and get curious and move with your desire, with what you want to do. So then what happened is that chapter about
Mm-hmm.
how to deal with your sexual energy.
Yeah. Yeah, part of it. Now that you were talking, at some point you froze, but I think I heard what you said. And um, yeah, it was nice to hear your story, because now that's what you share with people about. So it was very nice to hear like the journey that somebody went through, and like who could have told that you would be like helping people to get in contact with that energy when like 20 years ago, I don't know how long you
Yeah.
had it all shut down, as you said.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, but yes, so that idea that it's with tension, muscle tension is the way that, because you're not doing it consciously, you're not saying, oh, I have all this energy, how will I deal with it in a way that isn't dangerous, so I'll deal with it this way. It's not conscious. It's like it's like fear reflex, so you learn to tense in a way to not to feel it. So part of the book describes in what ways the tension in your, yeah, in what ways you tense your body to suppress that, because it's not just the genitals area. Like part of it is just the hips, because that's where the genitals are, but it it's the whole self. Like you tense um your neck, and you limit your breathing. So it's like it's a whole pattern of tension. So that's part of it. And then what it talks about is that like all this ocean of um sensuality and what's the other word? Um, eroticity, how do you say erotic? Yeah, like the erotic world is like a whole ocean, in the way that there's many layers of how you can feel like your sexuality. Like it's not just like either I'm not feeling anything or I'm having an orgasm. So like between not being aroused at all and having an orgasm, like such a world. But we often don't live in that world because of that fear. So it's either like some people even believe that the tension itself is the sexual pleasure and arousal. Like
Mm,
um,
mm,
because when you learn to get rid of that tension and you allow yourself to feel, it's not really that tension what you feel. It's more like you feel well energy, and you feel vulnerable, and you sometimes like sometimes sexual pleasure can feel like falling. Like it's more that sort of feelings than tension. But sometimes people learn so much to shut down that tension is habitual. So even when they're getting sexually aroused, there's that tension. So it's very quick, that coming from not being aroused to then being aroused and then having an orgasm. Uh, uh, and there's tension, and they believe that that tension itself is the pleasure, but
exactly.
really it isn't. Hmm.
But really, it isn't. Yes. Yes, as if this tension, it's interesting that the understanding that I get from this chapter is to understand tensions. So it's not like do this and that to get pleasure. It's more like understand that tension is what's getting in the way of the experience. As if
Hmm.
it were a way to wall yourself off from the experience and
Hmm.
guess what's going on. So to the point that it's so little the pleasure that you get that you can confuse pleasure with tension and
Hmm.
fears. And of course, we've been educated to go to the McDonald's pay and get your cajita feliz to get your hamburger, and that's it. Like we live in a transactional society, and pleasure is not exactly transactional. As you mentioned, like, yeah, you can work it like swallow your hamburger and you get the pleasure and that's it. But in the idea of arousal, the experience, orgasm, and then nothing. While this other view is that you can work out that tension, that walling off, and open to the vulnerability of the experience, to the falling on the unknown of pleasure that emerges uniquely moment by moment, then you're really in what's going on in your flesh. But yeah, it takes like opening to the mystery. And this not only applies to sex, but to life, moment by moment. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen in the next minute of our conversation. Like, we can control it or plan it, but after a certain point where you want to control in order to guarantee you're gonna be safe, you're actually working against yourself if you're letting fear run the show. And I believe that safety safety is important. It's very important in sexuality, intimacy, and life, but especially like when you're entering into this mysterious land of creativity. And it may seem contradictory to be safe while you're doing, while you're like opening vulnerable to the experience. So I want to ask you about like what you work on non-verbal communication, and Alexander, and even clown. It's a or music. Like in clown, there's a lot of improvisation. You don't know what's gonna happen. In music, you know what's gonna happen if it's a set piece you play, but still there is no play that is exactly the same. You can rehearse something 1,000 times, and every time it's gonna be different. Especially if you're in a theater in public, like the experience with the audience transforms everything. And in sex, like, well, like if if the menu is always the same, like monotony can break the whole thing of pleasure. So what's your take on, yeah, on the apparent contradiction that that is creativity, as in the sexual experience, and safety?
Mm-hmm. Interesting question. Because the first thing that comes to me is in clowning, like the school of clowning that I learned has a lot to do with vulnerability, like all these things that um, you hide, like because you want to. Generally in life, we learn to have this mask, like, oh yes, I'm intelligent and I am serious, or I am um, a good person, or whatever. We have this mask because we don't want to be vulnerable and show how we really feel or who we really are. And in clowning, it's about taking that mask off and showing
Oof.
um, who you are, and you feel vulnerable. But what gives you safety is the fact that when you are like that, the audience love you. Oh, and well, it's the audience if you are in front of an audience, but it happens in life as well. Like um, if well, now that we're speaking in English, but we are Mexicans, I'm not feeling vulnerable about that. But if I was, it's like actually my mother is English, and I lived in England altogether 8 years. So sometimes people have this expectation that I will have a very good English accent, and I don't at all. um, so when they have that expectation, sometimes I feel a bit like insecure. Oh, they'll find out that I have a very bad accent, according to myself. But actually, when you said before this talk, I asked you, it's going to be in English, and you said yes, it's going to be in English with Chilango accent. Chilango means from accent from Mexico City. So I love that idea that you like okay, yeah, we don't care if our accent is whatever. And I'm sure people who are listening to us in the recording will love us for that. They will love us because we don't mind that we have bad accents. We just talk. So, so in that way, it's like when you are clowning and you are showing your mistakes to people, and you're showing your vulnerability, they sort of start loving you and trusting you. It's like, okay, he's a human being like me, so he's allowing himself to be human and show that he's human, because he's giving me permission to also be human and make mistakes. So, so that's why that's what gives you security. Like if you feel very vulnerable first when you are doing clowning, because you're taking that mask off, but then you see that people love you because you are yourself, so that gives you security. Um, and I think it's the same with sexuality. Um, yes, like we all learned that it was dangerous, all that sexual energy was dangerous. And it is if you don't know how to handle it. But then if you learn how to communicate with people, then there's a way to say, okay, this, like, um, I mean, we could be dancing in a party and we don't want to be a sexual couple, but we might enjoy dancing together and we are enjoying our sexuality together to some extent. But if there's no communication, then there might be like the
Weird.
idea like, okay, if I enjoy this too much, he's going to think that I want something, but I don't want something. So then I don't enjoy it and I shut it all down. But if there's communication, there's okay, let's enjoy it. And then if there's some misunderstanding, I can empathize with you and you empathize with me, and then we connect again. So, so I think that happens at all levels. Like dancing is one level of feeling your sensuality. Um, like maybe having sex is another level at which, again, you are very vulnerable. And if you develop trust and intimacy in the communication, that you can say what you feel and you can say what you feel, and um, then that's where we find the safety. Like we still feel vulnerable, but it's a nice
Yeah,
vulnerability. It's like a
I
vulnerability
love this. And
that,
I feel like
that
it's
you can
such a
enjoy.
huge relief because, like, I've always saw you like an authority in the somatic world. Like, wow, this guy, he has an amazing trajectory, and he keeps on posting and sharing about Alexander no matter what. And then we start talking, and I was like, really? And it's like, of course, like we are colleagues, but I admire you a lot. And then I didn't realize at the moment, but I relaxed. Like, I said to myself, like, I'm gonna like show up as I am without filters. Also, like an offering for this guy to be able to make his own choices, decide, like take it or leave it. Like here we are talking English in Mexican accent, and like you're free to stay. We would love you to stay, but like love, it's not an obligation. So if you're not loving our Mexican accent Chilango, like, well, so sorry. I believe that, like, because this is communication, like showing up as you are. Like communication goes both ways, but you're covering your way of the message on the way you present yourself to someone or to the world or to a situation. And on the feedback of that situation, you will know if you're really a good match. And it's completely true. When you show who you are, your mistakes, no masks, then people can love you for who you truly are. And the ones that don't love you, like they are free to go. And I believe this is important because there are so many filters in social media and so many poses and so much bluff, and pretends that, like, why would you waste your uniqueness in order to try to comply to a social stereotype? Like, why would you waste, like, it's like throwing your heart to the garbage and wearing here like a list of guidelines of what is expected to you. Like, don't do that.
Hmm.
Like, take the mask off and show us show us you are, and also allow yourself to be moved and changed in the interaction with the other person, because the other person it's gonna move you, and then you're gonna discover things in yourself that you wouldn't otherwise realize. So yeah, it's very very interesting, like showing as you are, and it's also like a
Hmm.
basic respect of non-manipulation to the other person. Like, don't try to make, don't do something to get something. Don't try to appear in a certain way so the other person acts in a way that you expect. Actually, like, if you do that because of fear or because of safety, that's the wrong way, because the other person may respond as you expect and planned and plotted, but but it's gonna be like an artificial safety that you made up, not the true core safety that is what you need when you're truly on the verge of the unknown, of pleasure taking over your flesh, especially in the sensuality that happens in sex.
Hmm. Yes, and all of this is much easier to say it than to
And to
live it. Like, because like for some reason we have these masks, so sometimes they work for us. Um,
sometimes they work for us. That's, yeah, sometimes they work for us. The thing is to not let the mask work as you. Like,
mhm,
the, don't forget who you are, and it's also like the roles you play. Like, you can be authentic playing the role of the teacher, and you're authentically doing what you do as a teacher, and that's not wearing a mask, and that's not being fake. But
mhm.
it can be misunderstood with wearing a mask.
Yes, I mean sometimes it gives you some protection, so you need to learn another way to protect yourself without the masks. That's why I talked about communication. If you learn to communicate better, then that might give you a better protection than the mask.
Yeah, a better protection than the mask. Very interesting.
Mhm.
Would you share with us a little exercise about nonviolent communication, and Alexander, like, to wrap everything that we have talked about into an experience for the sensualist?
Mhm. Yes, so like you mean something that they can apply in a way, like some
Yeah,
like
yeah, like the sensualists here watching, listening to us are accountants, are stay-at-home moms. Some of them are dancers and ninjas, but mostly like people that is learning to sense themselves, like to discover, like, oh, this is me, besides like my diplomas and everything.
Mhm. Yes. So, well, first, like very simple, like being present in this moment exercise, which would be like to keep your eyes open, because often when we want to relax and feel our body, we tend to close our eyes. But I invite you to keep them open because you're aware of yourself, but also aware of what's happening around you. And so You can be aware of the contact of the chair and the floor if you are sitting, or the floor if you're standing, or if you're lying, the bed or whatever, the surface that gives you support. You can be aware of that. And you can be aware at the same time of what you see, what you hear. Is it possible to be aware of both things at the same time? Like sometimes you pay attention to one and then to the other, but maybe you can see if it's possible to be both at the same time. So the tip of your tongue rests behind your lower teeth. The tip of your tongue resting behind the upper part of the lower teeth. And
Okay. Ah, such a relief.
you can let your lips separate slightly one from each other in case they were in contact. And what's the size of the room you're in? Because you're inside a room. Or what space do you take in that room? Even though you might be apparently still, there's always very slight movements. Like sometimes they're so subtle that you can feel them, but they are your balancing adjustments. So with you, Candia, I see that in a way you're concentrating and you're not looking anymore. So is it possible to look around and at the same time
Okay.
remember that there's very small movements that balancing and you don't need to do them. They happen by themselves and you stop interfering with your balancing. So that's just
Ah,
present. And then to keep all that awareness while you are moving or while you are responding to what happened to you. So that's another part of it. So to practice just a little bit of that, I'm going to ask you to take your right hand and while you keep your neck free, touch your head with your right hand. So that's a way of keeping this freedom when you move. Now you can let the gravity take your hand back down. So is trying out testing your reflexes and that hit you in your knee and your leg moves. You are not moving your leg, it's moving by itself. But if you're stiff, it won't move. So a lot of the body movements are like that. They happen if you allow them to happen. So when you are dancing, if you enjoy the music and you look at the people you are dancing with, something will happen to you. Your body will want to move and you allow it to move it. So it's more like how to keep it available for that to happen. So if you play with this awareness while you are dancing, you be aware of the flow and you as a whole and listen to the music and you let your joints be free and let the music move you. It's similar to when the doctor tries your reflexes out.
yes.
And one of the things that I read in that chapter that you asked me about is that the movement, like the pelvic movement when you're having sexual intercourse of like the pelvis moving like this is also a reflex. So it's not something that you do. It's something that when you are aroused, if you start interfering with it, it will happen as a reflex.
Mm.
So yes, similar to dancing. So that's one of the
Very
things
important.
that stayed with me. So this freedom that we got by stopping for a moment and being aware of the flow and looking around and being aware of yourself, that we can take a little bit further and you can be aware of flow and look around and ask yourself while you look around, ask yourself if you might be tightening your neck or you might be pulling your head back and down, but you can still look around and you ask yourself if you are tightening your body or if you are shortening and just touch us some way. Um, so so I'm not asking you so much what to do, it's more asking you what to be aware of If
Yes.
you're aware of it, you stop interfering. So, so bring that awareness to your activities. So when you're walking in the street, or when you are dancing, or when you're having sex, so that's exercise. And I don't know if it's more than you expected, but thinking about nonviolent communication, if there was some exercise. Um, yes, well, probably the the short exercise would be to think of a time when you are not flowing somewhere somehow. Like maybe you are you are with somebody and you are shutting. You're talking with somebody and you are shutting down. You are putting a mask. Yeah. Or maybe you are dancing and you are thinking, okay, I mustn't be too sensual because they might get the wrong message. Or if you are having sex with somebody and you stop feeling pleasure because there's some disconnection, you have some feelings and you're not expressing them, so you have some resentment. So that's something got shut down. So think of one example of one situation in life when, for some reason, you are not flowing. So first, ask yourself, why would you like to flow? Like, if you float, what needs would be met? Like, would that mean you need for pleasure? Would that mean you need for connection, for spontaneity? So what first you ask yourself, why would like to flow? What if you float more, what would that give you? And then ask yourself, why are you not flowing? That's also needs that are not being met. Is it because you need safety, because you need acceptance, because you need trust in yourself, um, or you need inclusion? Like, you might fear that the people will judge you, so you want to belong, so that's why you don't want to be judged. Like ask yourself that. So that already helps when you get in contact with those needs. So there's needs on one hand, why you would want to flow, and there's needs that have made you react in a way that they're not helping you flow. So you can ask yourself, is there a way to meet both?
Is there a way to
And
do both?
yeah, and then you can put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Like, how are they feeling? What are their needs? So whatever they're saying or whatever they're thinking, that's also an expression of feelings and needing. So if you put yourself in those shoes, you start seeing them as a human. So okay, they have needs as well. So there might be a way of communicating to meet their needs and my needs. So
Nice.
maybe yes. So that's the exercise. I hope it was clear. It was a bit long.
Yes, loving it. Starting with the position of the tongue in the upper part of the back part of the lower teeth, I felt an immediate relief that looked like like a deep breath. And I've been dealing with a lot of things that get in the way of me fully ex- expressing and delighting in my sensuality. And one of those expressions of tension in my body is that I wake up with sore gums because I believe that in the night I am pushing with the tongue, my lower teeth with the tongue. I've never done this, and I haven't really researched about it because I've I've been doing this just like for about 2 weeks, and now it's like I reconnected. Like my tongue reminded like a good place to be that was not pushing the teeth, and then uh this this approach of not following a guideline on what to do, but actually uh, just being aware of what you're doing, especially of the micro movements that happen naturally if you don't get in the way. Like just sitting here, like there are micro movements of adjustment that you even see the little kids and babies when they first sit, they are like moving their head. and their body. Like their like posture, it's not something fixed. It's like it's it's dynamic. And then being aware of these micro movements as you move or as you do something. And this is super key not to collapse. So sensuality like can be very simple, can be in this simple exercise of being aware of what you're doing and just not getting in the way of your own self and your micro movements. And you will feel an immediate like relief and delight. And I feel that this state of awareness is a great base to do the second part of the nonverbal communication. Like, okay, you are sensing yourself. So what do you need now? And why are you not getting that? And check. And I felt that from this physical state, like I have a better disposition to find a meeting point for these apparent contradictions. But those meeting points, I feel that happen from within. Like you make space for the experience to happen and and for the experience to happen to you, like you being moved, like what you mentioned of the reflexes, and these little mini movements are reflexes. So it's like a huge relief to know that you don't need to learn how to fuck, and no one needs to learn how to have sex. We already know in our DNA. And also, if we didn't, as humans, like our ancestors wouldn't have found the way like 20,000 years ago where there were no PhDs and universities. so
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's like okay, like you don't need to become the great lover. It's like you already are it. Just get out of your own way, like like just don't keep on building tensions that will wall you off from the experience and the movement. So it's very relieving, and like it's also like a key to true confidence, because like now you know that you've got it, and that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, I like the way you're putting. Mhm.
Yes, Rodrigo. So tell us, how can we learn more about your work and get in contact with you?
Mhm. Well, the problem that it's all in Spanish, like on my web page, it's in Spanish. Well, I said my, but our web page because it's my wife Madeleine, who is a professional clown, and my. Um, so, so yeah, if some people who are listening to us know Spanish, then that's like I have like we have their articles and videos and like many things. So it's we will change the name, but for now the URL or URLs is liberatoclown.com. So I don't know if you will be able to write it down.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
I will write I will
yeah,
paste the link. So it's Libera, as liberate with an A in Spanish,
mhm,
libera to clown.com.
dot, mhm,
And
yes. Mhm.
thank you
Yes,
very
and
much.
at some point it will come to Libresencia, but we will keep the old URL also. So with that one, they can get there. Mhm.
Awesome. Awesome. So please go check what Rodrigo is doing and learn more with him. It's a fantastic way of getting to know yourself better, and also perform in a more successful way, but not from the perspective of achieving and performing, but from what I perceive, is performing through being sensitively, sensually, fully immersed on the experience of what you're doing because your awareness is on it. So thank you so much, Rodrigo. It's been a great pleasure to have you here at the Sensual Sessions podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much to you too. And thank you for the people who got this far into listening to us.
Yeah, thank you, Sensualist. If you haven't subscribed already to the Sensual Sessions podcast, please visit www.centrodepoder.com in Mexican Chilango accent English and get yourself signed up to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox. Until then, please remember to sense your fire so you can share the flame.